Welcome to episode 511 of the Red Dirt Agronomy Podcast. I am Dave Deken, and as always, we've got a great episode for you. Today we're talking forage systems, pasture recovery, what producers need to be thinking about as they balance cattle prices, input costs, and long-term pasture health. We caught up with Brian Pugh at the Central Oklahoma Cattle Conference at the Payne County Expo Center, and we're going to have him walk us through some real-world questions producers are asking right now. Like how to rebuild worn-out pastures when native grasses need to rest, what it takes for introduced forages to recover, and why more folks need to start thinking about pasture ground with the same kind of management mindset they use for a crop. And as a bonus, we'll get into the difference between native and introduced forage systems, how stocking pressure and input decisions can shape recovery, and what producers out east, central Oklahoma, and even further west ought to be considering as they start planning for the next grazing season. We'll kick off our conversation with Brian Pugh in just a few minutes, but just a reminder, you will be able to find all of the information we talked about on this episode and past episodes on our website, reddirtagronomy.com. But first, as always, we start with a quick trip around the table for an introduction to the dream team of dirt and everything that grows from it. Let's start with Oklahoma State University Extension Precision Nutrient Management Specialist.
Damn conversations. That's exactly why we're doing this.
Dr. Brian Arnall. And next to him is Oklahoma State University Extension Cropping System Specialist.
She's got the educator voice with a microphone.
Dr. Josh Lofton. Let's kick off our conversation with Brian Pugh that was recorded on February 13th, 2026 at the Central Oklahoma Cattle Conference in Stillwater. Now, on to the episode. You are listening to the Red Dirt Agronomy Podcast. Here we are again at the Central Oklahoma Cattle Conference, and we're at the Payne County Expo Center. Pretty great crowd so far. The Bryans were up there talking. Brian Square, we're up there talking.
At one moment, it was Brian Cube. I wish Frecken had come up and really gotten into it.
Yeah. Well, I think by law you're only allowed to have two Bryans on a stage at a time.
It may be.
I can't remember what the actual statute is on that, but I guess, Brian, go ahead and introduce our other Brian and kind of give us a rundown on what you guys discussed and kind of what the questions are. I mean, yeah, folks want to hear what you said, but they also want to hear the answers to the questions that were there.
They really had questions for Brian Pugh, who is our state forage extension specialist. As of how long you been on now? 6 months about
June 1.
About June 1,
yeah.
State forage. We started the convo of Brian Square. Basically, neither of us wanted to build PowerPoints. We just wanted to Just wanted to talk. So we talked a lot about, what does fertility look like in the system if you're in a hay system, grazed bermudagrass system versus native forages, and diving into that.
Yeah.
The questions first is, I fully expected, we're all about weeds, which Pugh covers all the weed stuff. Our weed questions, I don't think they've ever changed in bermudagrass in the last 20 years. It's sericea, grassy weeds, it's broom sedge, it's
Sandbirds.
I was actually shocked that sandbird never really came up.
I got three after we left.
I did too. I almost said sandbird, but I was like, you know what?
I just got done telling Mason, if you got bermudagrass around here, more than likely somebody's going to ask about sandbirds, and then nobody did. Right?
I almost was like, no, I'm not going to ask about weeds. And so Brian delved into that, both management and chemical wise, and then. The conversations now are we've got really good cattle prices, but I think Brian, he said something that we should probably talk about, and that's where it is, that we are managing now in the thought process of the 80s.
Oh, yeah.
And in that, and you said that, and I'd say we're absolutely doing it, but then we're also not, because we forgot some of the aspects that we knew of in the 70s and 80s.
Yeah.
And so it's like we're taking a narrow view of what we've always done and forgot some of the additive.
Yeah, and let me elaborate on that maybe a little bit more than what I did in front of the group, but I think we manage cow herds and manage forage stands at the stocking intensity we were all encouraged to be at in the 80s and 90s, which was very intensive because inputs was extremely cheap. But because the inputs have become more expensive, we've cut a lot of those out. So again, we're shorting the cow herd on both ends. We've got way too many mouths to feed, and inputs have went up, and now we're cutting down those inputs that we're wanting to purchase. So,
and the forgotten times is that, and not necessarily on the Bermuda, but still on the improved, but especially with our natives, is that I feel that, especially in the droughts, because we've gone through 2 heavy drought cycles since I've been in the last 20 years, but. At least what I was told from the old timers, because I wasn't doing this in the 70s and 80s for sure,
right.
But they rested. They knew of the practice of resting a crop, and the rest we need for our native is even greater than what we need for an improved species most of the time.
Yes.
And I see way too many folks still grazing at our critical point for our natives, and I see them haying a month or two too late, because guess what? That's when we can hay Bermuda grass. That's when we can hay our improves, and it's not allowing those natives. So what we mean by rest is that these natives were in a cycle and in a system that they recover, and they put nutrients, they put reserves back below ground, and that time is kind of late summer, not even early. It's a late summer.
After July 10th. That's what we recommend.
And our Bermuda grass, though, Bermuda grass needs to do that, but what's the time frame on Bermuda grass?
I'd say if we could get a good 3 to 4 weeks before frost, which a lot of times puts us October rest, that's gonna help us as far as stand health.
But if you're treating a native like a Bermuda grass now you're harvesting that native in July when it really needs to be resting. And we see a lot of decline. I think our native pastures and our rangelands have really declined over the last 15, 20 years. And I think really those 12 and 13, you combine by fertilizer price of 08 and 09, we're just got too expensive to put fertility on pasture ground, period. Right. By the droughts of 12, 13, 11, 12, Josh, 12, 13...
Yeah, 04, 05, 11, and 12, and 13 out in western Oklahoma.
And you combine that by we need forage, and so we're going to graze everything.
Yeah. And I just talked to a producer as we got done, of course, standing over to the side, and he was talking about native grass management, and I pointed out to him, if your dad or your granddad ran a Caliper 10 on that place, and we happened to have a few bad years, forage production was lower than expected because of environment. Now all of a sudden those cows put a little more pressure on that forage stand, and then we get this increase of either broadleaf forbs or maybe undesirable plants like the cerisa. And before you know it, now we're a Caliper 8.
Yeah.
And then that compounds even more, and we get into this downward spiral, and we've seen that a lot even up through the Osage, of where now technically we're a Caliper 4 or 5, even though we've allotted 10 acres, half of it is cerisa lespedeza that's not being used by the cow. So, and the same thing happens in these introduced stands as we have these unpalatable plants that show up. We're actually looking at a more intensive or tighter stocking rate.
So I guess what changed, or where was that change mechanism that then we never reverted back that change to incorporate rest? Is it the demand of the producer? Is it we're doing with it with less acres now? Why is it we don't have that same rest period? The guys in the 80s did it, so why can't we do it?
Yeah, which is crazy because we have less cattle now than what we had back then. Yeah, Dr. Pugh just talked this morning. If you look at some of that data, we have less cattle now. But I think the producers that we do have, they're trying to be more intensive. They may just not have every step of the information that they need to implement that properly. So that's probably one of the biggest issues I see is we're just running too many cows with not enough inputs at this point.
Well, so I guess I question of were we running on borrowed time in the 80s anyway? Mm-hmm. The way that we were doing things was never maybe the right way. We just had a lot more, or our organic matter was higher, or this was higher, or everything was higher. So, or even our inputs. So we were either over inputting us because our inputs were cheaper. So we were maybe not even doing the things right in the 80s. It's just we have less flexibility now, so we're seeing it as a more impact.
You got to think about the 80s. The cost of nitrogen, phosphorus, potassium, like right now, nitrogen, NP&K, let's just say it's around 60 cents a pound of nutrient. It's between 50 and 70, depending on where you're at and what you do. In the 80s and 90s, we were talking 5, 6. Like, it was expensive when it hit 10 cents a pound of nutrient.
Yeah.
And so, there's a lot of three-way blends. Nobody had urea. They would blend with DAP. They would blend with potash. Everybody had a 15-15-15 that they threw out. Man, Jennifer's loud.
She got that educator voice.
Got that mama voice.
She's got the educator voice with a microphone.
Yeah. So, whenever producers are looking at their pasture, should they start treating their pasture as almost like a crop, I guess, and kind of take that approach of, because like you were saying, back in the drought years, the input prices may not have allowed the folks to actually put stuff out on their pasture.
Yeah.
And it should they kind of change the way that they approach their pasture land now that, things may not be as bad?
100%. And I honestly think from a nationwide standpoint, we are really seeing that shift in the last 5 to 10 years.
Yeah.
Forage is really coming to the forefront as maybe our next frontier when it comes to agronomic management, the way we've seen, cropping systems intensify over the last 40 years in traditional crops. I think we're starting to hit that point with forages because we realize to be honest, we're very inefficient in the way that we do manage sometimes. So, I think you're 100% right.
Because a buddy of mine I told him, I said, dude, you need to look at getting a soil test. He said, I never would have thought of doing that. And he manages, I think he only has maybe 160 acres maybe. And he said, I need to put the legwork in. And he got a soil test and he was applying different things. And he said, never would have thought I need to apply copper, but I'm putting copper in there. And he sees the importance of putting the inputs in there to get a better forage for his cattle.
Sure.
And to, be smarter about how he's running his land.
And I often look at the I-states, corn producer in the I-state.
Yeah.
How many of those producers don't apply nutrients to that corn?
Right.
Don't control competition from weeds.
Right.
Essentially none.
Exactly.
I may be going out on a limb here, but essentially none. But if we look across a forage system, again, here in the state, probably well over half don't do that. That's being very conservative too. So again, I think there's lots of opportunities for improvement there. I think it's time that we start to consider how do we manage this a little bit more efficiently.
Right.
And I think high cattle markets, high livestock prices help that because people want to be able to support that larger herd, that more intensive stocking rate.
Well, so let me ask a question on that because me and Dave were talking over here while y'all were getting going.
You were learning?
No. We were doing a crop update on talking about how right now there's just not a great option. Wheat price is low, soybean price is low, corn and milo price are low, cotton price is low, hay's not worth anything. So all these options. So are we almost in the last couple of years becoming almost reliant on our integrated growers that have livestock and crops of I have to get everything out of this, which might mean my beef side. You can't see my hand, but
he's waving for the audience. You actually can get it in on the camera.
Yeah, there goes his left hand. Yeah,
to even sustain my crop side of things, which aren't gaining me any money. So I am cutting costs because this has to sustain two markets now at this point.
Right.
Sure.
I mean, are we getting there to where beef is carrying too much of the load because our commodities kind of aren't worth anything?
No, I mean,
for the time being.
As long as it carries, it's like put that monkey on your back and run. As long as that monkey will stay on your back right now. But yeah, I mean, beef.
But then are we developing bad practices
100%.
because we're trying to get everything out of our beef?
Yeah.
When do we recover?
Yeah. So
when do we tell ourselves, okay, and if I can sustain 10 per head, but to rebuild I need to go 15 per head, and I'm going to be okay doing that. When is a beef producer going to do that?
Well, here's the real problem, I think, and working with Scott Clausen, he's one of our ag economists.
Yeah.
We've worked on this a lot in the past, but the real problem is when you have markets like we do today, you're a beef producer, Josh. You've got 10 cows. But I tell you, if you've got 50 cows on your place, you're going to make exponentially more returns than if you have 10. And we can afford the feed because, again, a lot of these grain crops are cheap right now. We can afford the hay. We're actually going to make more money the more cows we have. If you want to dry lot these cows on your property and run 200 cows, you're going to make even more money. So what do you do as a producer? Hey, that makes sense. Let's run some more cows. In 2 years, when cattle markets break, and again, maybe fertilizer prices start to go up, now we're wanting to shift back to a forage system. The problem is we've just spent the last couple of years making a whole lot of money with a whole lot of cows. It's going to be real hard for us to change that fast and readopt, well, I'm going to go from 200 cows to 10. I think that's the biggest problem is maybe we're very slow to change the way that we're managing these cow herds when we need to be a little bit faster to be reactive with those markets.
Well, I mean, it also beckons back to our droughts. Is the reluctancy, and completely understand it, the reluctancy to cut herds in those long droughts because there's a tide. These are the genetics that I developed. I worked really hard to get the herd where I wanted to. And there were some folks that were thoughtful and had sacrificial land where they just said, I'm going to protect a lot, but I'll sacrifice. But it's those that didn't, that hung on the herd because more emotions than economics tie out. And agriculture's got a lot of emotions tied to it. We have a lot of feelings and things tied to the herd that we've spent the last 20 years building and thinking about genetics and thinking about EPDs and all these things. And now cattle price breaks, we get a drought, fertilizer's high. The economist, Scott, will tell you 100% we need to cut herd. But, man, that's an emotional fact to then go say, I'm going to.
Cows are not very liquid. Stockers are liquid. Cow-calf production is not liquid.
Yeah.
People get bought into those cows.
So,
whether they name them or not.
They have numbers on their tags, and sometimes that tag number means as much in the heart as any Betsy or Boopy.
Well, I think one person asked, and correct me if I'm wrong because I was trying to hear, that we've talked about on natives, nitrogen, and coming out of the drought, potassium. Was it somebody asked about lime? Coming into natives. So I guess that's the question. I can't remember. I think it's coming from you, but we talk about Bermuda stands that have been on a piece of property for a long time, almost adapt to that lower pH. If you were to establish a new one, it would fail miserably, but this one does really well. Does natives have that kind of memory too, or is that a unique
I didn't
system?
go there. My first thought was...
I know this is just out of left field, but I mean, tell me that.
If it's true native, the probability of it having a lower pH is much lower. One, it's probably eroded ground, so you're in the subsoil anyways, which is high pH. You've probably not been fertilizing with nitrogen because it's a native. And so the probability of having a native with a low pH is much less likely than a old bermudagrass stand that I've been slinging 200 pounds of urea on since the 85 or whenever I sprigged it. So I started with that. The probability of a native having low pH is less likely than an old bermudagrass stand.
Yeah.
But then going in, depending on what natives you're looking at, if I'm trying to bring in something from the northwest, a more arid, something that's used to the high plains, I'm going to have to be thoughtful about the pH of that crop. And I don't think they're going to manage those more high plains natives are going to do well at a low pH. They're just going to be gone. They're just out of the system. And if we're looking at natives that are more out of the southeast, now they're going to be more adapted to the city. So what species do I have? And so Josh, I would say going back to yours, we think Bermudagrass transitions. I would expect a native stand species composition would transition if the pH does. It's not necessarily the plants get accumulated. You're going to have a different subset of species.
Oh, so you're going to change, at 6.5 to 7.5, I had this set of species. If for some odd reason, maybe I'm over-applying nitrogen and I acidify it down to 6.5 to 6, I'm just going to shift that species, maybe
I think that happens a little bit. Probably any species.
I agree.
Any forage species in any environment. I think we do get adaptation over time.
But is that us adapting to having more foxtail in there? Because nothing else will go except for the foxtail.
Maybe there's a critical limit. If we start talking about potassium with Bermuda or something like that, there is a critical limit where we don't get much adaptation below that point in a short frame of time. Because, again, 10 years is a short frame of time from an agronomic standpoint if you really want to look at it. And I almost argued with Brian a little bit on the low pH. I was like, man, I know southeast Oklahoma and northeast Oklahoma, we have a lot of low pH, but then I caught myself because I thought that's not a fair comparison. So much of that is go-back cotton land that was farmed so hard back in the 20s, 30s, and 40s, and it's not a fair comparison. And so many of those quote-unquote native stands now on that eastern side of the state are just broom sedge.
Yes.
They are native grass, but they're not desirable stands.
So let's, and you've kind of answered that, and I know that the answer is going to be what's on Josh's mug there, but how,
it depends.
Say cattle prices, the switch is flipped. We need to bring back the pasture land, and it's going to be variable from how hard they were grazed, how, where you're coming from, but what's a realistic time frame to build back that pasture?
That's a good question.
He didn't even say it.
It depends.
You did say it. Okay. Yeah.
So I would say with introduced forages extremely quickly.
Yeah.
And it really comes back to giving those plants what they need. So I normally talk about three main things an introduced forage needs to recover fairly quickly would be reduced use,
right,
some kind of rest for that plant.
Yeah.
Nutrients that plant would need to go through its functions.
Yeah.
And then also, and I just started drawing a blank here. I looked out the window and saw somebody walk by.
I did that during the talk. I just completely squirreled. Like, where was I going?
Yeah, I totally did that.
Where's that squirrel
competition? Controlling that competition. So those weeds, they're stealing resources like crazy, and as that forage stand goes downhill in health, again, Mother Nature fills those holes with those unpalatable species. That's her protective strategy. So those three things tend to get us back in line pretty quick. And matter of fact, I've had some trials on that in central and eastern Oklahoma over the last few years, going back to the last drought. And we can see on a bermudagrass stand that's degraded and an 80% stand loss due to winter injury and fall drought.
Yeah.
Basically in 75 days, we had full stand coverage on the ground.
Really?
And within 120 days, we were already over a ton of production per acre.
Wow.
So again, those introduced forages are extremely quick to recover if we give them those three important elements.
Well, see, I was prepared for you to say, oh gosh, like 2 years and we got to baby it along and we got to do that. So
native plants, yes.
Yeah.
Now, I would agree with that. And I think we see that through our patch burn system. We really utilize the year of the burn. We utilize that extremely heavily.
Right.
We may not even see above ground portions of those plant stems the following year. But we know that natives can do that for well over a decade. They can remain below ground. Matter of fact, there's some research shows over a century. And that's how we get regeneration of native stands under timbered areas in eastern Oklahoma once that timber's been removed. So
you talked about introduced, and I know you love a little bit of bermudagrass.
I do.
Being on that side of the state, you love a little bit of bermudagrass. As we go west, I mean, you talked about it a little bit. What are our best options for? And again, if you want to talk about, there's a patch over here of something kind of little unique, but building your forage program around an introduced forage as you go further west in the state, what would you think is your best ones?
Well, I'm a fan of most forages. I think that surprises some people. I work with producers that hate Dallas grass. They despise it. They want to kill it. But I do think Dallas has a place. I have some Dallas on my own property. I have Bahia grass. Of course, I'm in a little closer towards southeast Oklahoma. They all have a place. But I do think as we move farther west in the state, Bermuda grass, although you can find it all the way to the Texas Panhandle on the proper soils, does start to give away acreage to Old World Bluestem. I honestly think that is our Bermuda of western Oklahoma, is Old World Bluestem. And it can be good quality pasture. We shouldn't forget that. Yes, it can be invasive in our native plant communities, but it is highly receptive to nitrogen, just like Bermuda grass is. We've got a lot of old work here at OSU that shows that. And the quality, while slightly lower than Bermuda, is still sufficient to get a cow through the summer, definitely, and then through the winter with a little bit of stockpiling there and some protein supplementation.
So you talked a little bit about lovegrass today.
Yeah.
And where does that fit?
I would honestly probably put lovegrass maybe just a little bit below Old World in desirability, but there are plenty of stands out there, and we were talking earlier, I actually have worked with a producer that has about 200 acres of lovegrass, manages it very intensively, keeps it short, and then fertilizes about 3 times through the summer. Cows always look great. He's on an intensive rotational system. Again, that helps manage that plant in that high-quality state. And I think that's the key for producers is understanding both where do I get the highest quality out of whatever species of plants I have, but then how does that match up to my cow herd's nutrient requirements? That's the true key to an excellent grazing system.
What about, and I know it's something that came in and talked to our forage class last semester, orchard grass.
Orchard grass, yeah. So
where does that fit?
Okay, well, again, we would say that it doesn't. That's what we've always traditionally said. When it comes to cool season perennial forages, of course, fescue is really our best adapted option for Oklahoma conditions. But I do have some trials where I've been putting some drought-tolerant orchard grass species in. We've always thought that hot, dry summers were the limiting factor for orchard grass because we've never been able to get it to persist more than 2 years. I kind of have an inkling now that maybe we have some other issues that are playing into that, maybe fungal issues because of humidity, higher rainfall, things like that. Again, we do have some producers that have had success with it for more than 3 years at this point. So I think there's opportunities for us to look at orchard grass, some of these novel endophyte fescues, things like that, out in western Oklahoma as well.
So, teff?
Yeah, I really like teff. I actually talked about this 2 days ago at Alva at a producer meeting, and I pretty much tell people now, if you can plant alfalfa and get an alfalfa stand up, I have no qualms that you can handle teff.
I like that.
If the only thing you've ever done is thrown a few handfuls of ryegrass seed out on bermudagrass, we may have issues getting that teff stand out of the ground. It does take a little more management, but again, very similar quality to mid-bloom alfalfa on that first cutting. Most of the trials here in Oklahoma were making 4,000 to 5,000 pounds of production on that first cutting. And then with a little additional nitrogen fertility, we should be 10,000 to 12,000 pounds per acre. So again, a lot of production, really high quality, high palatability, and it's really hitting the horse hay market right now. Horse owners love it.
So I'm a producer out in, let's say I'm in eastern Beaver, western Texas County.
Wow.
That's getting on out there.
Man. God's country.
Joking.
Why? Stop with that. Okay, so I got some ground that I want to do these introduced forages. Bermuda grass kind of gone down on me. So best option, Old World Blue Stem, or what are my options there?
Well, you do see Old World Blue Stem out there, and you do see managed Old World Blue Stem stands out there. We'll also see quite a bit more native. And I don't know if that doesn't transition us into the area without irrigation, that those native forages make a little more sense just because of the dry years.
So if I'm looking to do that, how many years, again, non-irrigated, dry land, how many years until I expect to potentially be able to see a good enough stand that I could really develop a grazing management strategy when we get that far west?
On a native plant community?
Yeah.
It could be a couple years. I mean, you're probably looking at 2 years of establishment. Again, most of those would be very different than here. We're talking tall grass species, central and eastern Oklahoma. We're talking mid and short grass species out there. So they establish quicker in those environments than what the tall grass species would. But prime example, 2 years ago in Beaver County, they had significant rainfall, 30 inches of rainfall, I believe, across about 5 months. Indian grass was everywhere. Sunflowers were wild sunflowers, 10 feet tall. So a little bit of rain would help you a whole lot establishing some of those introduced forages as well.
I could expect buffalo grass, my grommas, little blue, those kind of things. 2 years, I could have something going.
Yeah, and they do a lot of that with the CRP ground out there, where they'll go back in and plant. Matter of fact, combinations of Old World Blue Stem, some of the grommas. There'll be some short grass component in some of that CRP too. But
so where is that? Is it an agronomic decision or is it an economic decision from switching from perennial to just doing a constantly annual introduced forage system? Or is it just a preference?
It's both. I think economics always have to play a role in agronomic decisions, though. I mean, that's always been something I've tried to stake my career on is I can't, of good faith, get a producer to implement a strategy that doesn't make them money. So I think we have to keep that in mind. Perennial forages are just so much further ahead economically because we don't have that establishment cost annually. Teff would be an example of an annual. It needs replanting each year. I think it makes up for some of that because of its quality and because of its tonnage. You know, we have the opportunity to fully winter a beef cow on that with no supplementation, or we also have the opportunity to make $12 to $14 per bale small square hay for the horse market. So
what's the growing season on that?
On teff?
Yeah.
Very frost intolerant, so we're normally looking planting early May. Also very photoperiod sensitive, so by the time we get to September, even if it's 6 inches tall, it will shoot a seed head out.
Wow.
So, you're really looking at kind of 1st of May to end of August.
Okay.
If we do everything right and we're harvesting 30 to 35, maybe 40 days at the most, we should get 2 to 3 cuttings.
Well, you said overwintering. That's what made me wonder how it did into the winter months.
Teff.
Yeah.
It doesn't.
That's what I was thinking. Okay.
As soon as you get the first frost, it kills.
Yeah.
And we don't see reseeding with that species. It's not going to become invasive because it just will not persist. Those seeds don't persist in the soil.
That's one thing that I've learned on the podcast is whenever different varieties of plants are introduced to Oklahoma, it's not always in the history of it. It hasn't always had that approach of, well, how invasive could this be?
Yeah.
And so I'm glad to hear you say that on that. So
yeah, and that was a worry with that one. You know, there wasn't a lot of information out on it 10 years ago, but we just don't see that.
Yeah. So really, I mean, pastures could bounce back if folks do, you know, push the pedal on grazing and if cattle prices remain good for the next couple of years, but then turn off eventually.
So I want to jump in. Yes, pastures will come back.
Yeah.
You have to spend money.
Oh, yeah.
So that's a problem.
Yeah.
It's that we're now at a point where the cattle price isn't good, things are bad, so we're also saying, okay, I'm going to burn it out when there's good money.
Right.
And then when the money's bad, I want to rebuild it when I have to spend more money.
Right.
That's kind of counterintuitive.
Now you're getting caught. So cautious, yes, we can rebuild, but you're going to have to spend money on herbicide, going to have to spend money on fertilizer.
Yeah.
And why are we rebuilding? Oh, yeah, the cattle market's tanked and we don't have any money anymore.
Yep. Right.
So, yes, we can rebuild.
Yeah.
Functionally, we can rebuild with investment.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Good point.
Well, Brian, thanks for going on with us, helping us kind of recap what you guys talked about in the Brian Square presentation. And
thank you.
And this has been very informative, and we'll put a link to all your information on the website.
All right. Appreciate it, guys.
Thank you for listening in on this conversation of the Red Dirt Agronomy Podcast. And if you'd like to join the next discussion, leave us a message on our website, reddirtagronomy.com. We'd like to thank Brian Pugh for joining us on this episode of the podcast. And again, if you get a chance, visit our website, reddirtagronomy.com, to find out more information about our guest and any of the resources discussed today on this episode or previous episodes of the podcast. For Dr. Josh Lofton and Dr. Brian Arnall, I am Dave Deken, and we all want to thank you for listening. The proceeding is a copyrighted recording of Agnow Media, LLC 2026. And yes, all rights are reserved.